Your doctor will never tell you this. But there is a small group of islands in Japan where people forget to die, where 90 is considered middle-aged, where men and women wake up at 5 a.m., tend their gardens, eat breakfast, and get on with their lives, without a single prescription bottle on the counter. No statins, no blood pressure medication, no antidepressants. Scientists flew in expecting to find a genetic miracle. What they found instead was a kitchen. And the foods inside that kitchen have been quietly reversing aging at the cellular level for more than 1,000 years. Today, I'm going to walk you through every single one of them. 20 Japanese superfoods that science has now confirmed. Through clinical trials, cellular imaging, and population-scale epidemiological studies, are doing things to the human body that modern medicine is still trying to catch up with. Stick around, because number 10 on this list is a mushroom that Japan approved as an adjunct cancer therapy in the 1980s, and most of the Western world is still putting it on pizza without knowing what it actually does. And number 16 is a citrus fruit so loaded with neuroprotective flavonoids that its scent alone has been shown to reduce stress hormones in clinical trials. If you want ancestral wisdom backed by real science, delivered every single week, hit subscribe right now and ring the bell so you never miss a video. Let's get into it. 1. Natto, the fermented breakfast that Western medicine is only beginning to understand. There is no soft entry into natto. It is dark, stringy, aggressively pungent, and sticky in a way that resists easy description. It has also been eaten in Japan every single morning for more than 1,000 years. Not as medicine, as breakfast. The people who ate it didn't need a clinical study to justify the habit. They just kept eating it, and the science eventually arrived to explain why. Natto is made by fermenting whole soybeans with Bacillus subtilis, a bacteria that produces one of the most clinically remarkable enzymes ever isolated from a food source, nattokinase. Nattokinase is a fibrinolytic enzyme, meaning it breaks down fibrin, the protein that forms blood clots. Clinical research has shown it reduces blood viscosity, lowers thrombosis risk, and measurably improves circulation. These are the precise mechanisms behind stroke and cardiovascular death in aging populations. And there it sits, in a styrofoam container, at a Japanese breakfast table. Beyond nattokinase, natto is one of the only meaningful dietary sources of vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 activates the proteins that pull calcium out of arterial walls and deposit it into bones where it belongs. Most aging Westerners are critically deficient in it, which is part of why arterial calcification is so common. Japanese populations consuming natto regularly show measurably better cardiovascular markers and bone density than populations eating none. The probiotic activity adds another layer. Bacillus subtilis survives the gastrointestinal tract in ways that most probiotic strains do not, colonizing the gut and contributing to microbial diversity that researchers now link directly to healthy aging. The protein content is comparable to meat. The texture takes adjustment. The benefits do not. Traditional use: every morning over rice with a raw egg and soy sauce. Not as a protocol, just as breakfast. 2. Matcha, the concentrated extract of 1,000 years of Japanese culture. Long before matcha became a latte option at airport coffee kiosks, it was the centerpiece of an entire Japanese cultural philosophy. The tea ceremony was not about the tea. It was about attention, presence, and the practice of doing one thing completely. The tea itself, it turns out, was doing something remarkable the entire time. Matcha is not brewed tea. It is the entire powdered leaf consumed whole. This distinction matters because the most potent compound in green tea, age-defying, or epigallocatechin gallate, is present in concentrations up to 10 times higher in matcha than in a standard green tea infusion. Age-defying is one of the most studied polyphenol in all of nutritional science. Its documented effects include suppression of inflammatory signaling pathways, protection of brain cells from oxidative damage, and activation of autophagy, the cellular housekeeping process by which the body dismantles and recycles damaged cell components. Autophagy is one of the primary mechanisms of biological aging. It slows with age. Age-defying stimulates it. Matcha also contains L-theanine, an amino acid that crosses the blood-brain barrier and promotes alpha wave production, the brain state associated with calm, focused alertness. The combination of L-theanine and caffeine produces a cognitive state that regular coffee cannot replicate. Sustained attention without the cortisol spike. Clear thinking without the crash. Japanese monks drank it before long meditation sessions. They didn't call it a nootropic. They called it tea. Traditional use. Whisked with hot water, not boiling. In a small bowl, ceremonially, intentionally, as if the preparation itself was part of the medicine. 3. Miso. The fermented paste at the base of every Japanese meal. Walk into any Japanese home in the morning and you will encounter miso soup. Not as an option, as a non-negotiable foundation of the day. A bowl of miso soup, rice, and pickled vegetables is the Japanese breakfast. It has been for centuries, and the centenarians of Okinawa and Nagano have been eating it every single morning of their lives. Miso is made by fermenting soybeans and often grains like barley or rice with koji mold and salt. Fermentation can take months or years depending on the variety. What emerges is a paste so dense with enzymatic activity that Japanese physicians historically recommended it as a digestive aid, anti-fatigue food, and recovery food after illness. The probiotic populations produced during fermentation vary by style, but all traditionally fermented miso contains beneficial lactobacillus strains that contribute to gut microbiome diversity. A diverse microbiome is now one of the strongest biological predictors of healthy aging. It regulates inflammation. It produces neurotransmitter precursors. It trains the immune system. The gut is not a separate organ from the brain or the immune system. It is the headquarters. Miso also contains isoflavones, plant compounds with structural similarity to estrogen that have been studied in relation to bone density, cardiovascular health, and hormonal aging in women. Japanese women consuming traditional miso daily show significantly lower rates of osteoporosis than their counterparts in cultures without fermented soy. Traditional use. Dissolved in dashi broth with tofu, wakame, and scallions. Every morning. Without exception. 4. Okinawan purple sweet potato. The foundation of the longest-lived population ever documented. For most of the 20th century, Okinawans ate sweet potato at nearly every meal, not as a side dish, but as the primary caloric staple. The purple sweet potato, called beni-imo in Japanese, accounted for more than 60% of their daily calories for generations. And Okinawa had the highest concentration of centenarians on Earth. Researchers who studied the traditional Okinawan diet found something that challenged the assumptions of modern nutrition. The diet was high in carbohydrates, low in protein, very low in fat, and almost entirely plant-based. And the people eating it were living longer, with less cancer, less cardiovascular disease, and better cognitive function into old age than almost any other population ever recorded. The purple sweet potato is not incidental to this story. It is anthocyanin-rich, meaning its pigment comes from the same class of antioxidants found in blueberries and red grapes. These compounds reduce oxidative stress, protect arterial walls, and have documented anti-inflammatory effects that researchers have directly linked to slower cellular aging on measurable biomarkers. Its glycemic index, despite the sweetness, is relatively moderate because of its fiber content. It feeds gut bacteria. It supports blood sugar stability. It delivers vitamins A, C, and B6 in concentrations that support skin, immunity, and neurological function. What Okinawan elders understood intuitively is what nutritional science keeps confirming. The most powerful anti-aging food is not rare or expensive. It grows in the ground, requires no processing, and just needs to be eaten every day for an entire life. Traditional use. Steamed, boiled, or baked. Eaten simply. Eaten constantly. Because that is what has always worked. 5. Wakame seaweed. The ocean's pharmacy on a Japanese dinner plate. There is no ecosystem more nutrient-dense than the ocean, and no food that concentrates its nutritional chemistry more efficiently than seaweed. Wakame, the dark green sea vegetable that floats in every bowl of miso soup and dresses countless Japanese salads, is a direct product of that density. Wakame is extraordinary for iodine. Iodine is the mineral the thyroid cannot function without, and the thyroid is the regulator of metabolism, body temperature, heart rate, and energy production. Hypothyroidism is epidemic in modern Western populations. It contributes to fatigue, cognitive fog, weight gain, and accelerated aging. Japanese populations eating traditional seaweed-rich diets have among the lowest rates of thyroid dysfunction in the industrialized world. That is not accidental. Beyond iodine, wakame contains fucoidan, a sulfated polysaccharide found exclusively in certain species of brown algae. Fucoidan has been studied for anti-tumor activity, immune modulation, and its ability to inhibit viral attachment to cells. Its anti-inflammatory and anticoagulant properties are the subject of active pharmaceutical research. Japanese coastal communities have been getting it for free with dinner for centuries. Wakame also delivers calcium, magnesium, folate, and the full spectrum of trace minerals that land-based agriculture increasingly strips from soil. Traditional use: rehydrated and added to miso soup, dressed with sesame and rice vinegar in salads, served alongside fish and rice. 6. Tofu, the quiet protein backbone of a civilization's longevity. The Western framing of tofu as a flavorless health compromise completely misses what tofu actually is within Japanese food culture. Tofu is not a meat substitute. It is a staple protein in its own right, with 1,000 years of culinary development behind it and a nutritional profile that supports aging bodies in ways that animal protein often cannot match. Silken tofu, firm tofu, aged tofu, freeze-dried tofu called koyadofu. Each form has its purpose and its distinct nutritional expression. What they share is high-quality, complete protein derived from soybeans, with all essential amino acids present in ratios that support muscle maintenance. Maintaining muscle mass in aging bodies is one of the most critical and most overlooked determinants of long-term health. Sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle with age, is directly linked to mortality, falls, metabolic decline, and loss of independence. The centenarians of Okinawa were eating tofu every day. The isoflavones in tofu, genistein and daidzein, activate estrogen receptors in ways that support bone density, cardiovascular protection, and skin collagen synthesis in aging women, without the risks associated with pharmaceutical hormone replacement. Japanese women have lower rates of menopausal symptom severity than Western women, and researchers have attributed a meaningful portion of this difference to lifelong isoflavone consumption. Traditional use: in miso soup, in hot pot, grilled as ajidashi, eaten cold with ginger and soy sauce in summer. Daily throughout a lifetime. 7. Sardines, small fish that built a nation of strong-boned elders. Long before fish oil capsules existed, Japanese coastal villages were eating whole small fish, bones included. Sardines, called awashi in Japanese, are as fundamental to the traditional Japanese food landscape as rice. And the nutritional case for eating them whole is extraordinarily strong. The omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, are the primary biological reason that populations eating fatty fish consistently outperform fish-free populations on every measurable marker of cardiovascular and cognitive aging. DHA is literally a structural component of brain cell membranes. When dietary DHA is adequate, brain cells communicate more efficiently, inflammatory damage is mitigated, and the rate of cognitive decline measurably slows. This is among the most replicated findings in nutritional science. Sardines are exceptional even within the category of oily fish because they are small, short-lived, and low on the food chain. They accumulate essentially no mercury or heavy metals while still concentrating omega-3s at levels comparable to salmon. Eating them whole delivers calcium in a form that aging bodies absorb efficiently. One serving can provide nearly as much calcium as a glass of milk, carried within an omega-3 anti-inflammatory context that compounds the net effect on bone density. Their vitamin D supports calcium absorption and immune function. Their selenium supports thyroid health and glutathione production. There is almost nothing a sardine does not do. Traditional use: grilled fresh over charcoal, simmered in dashi, dried, and eaten whole as a snack. The less that is done to them, the more they do for you. 8. Soba noodles, the forgotten longevity carbohydrate of the Japanese mountains. Before rice dominated the lowland cities of Japan, the mountain communities of Nagano were eating buckwheat. Soba noodles made from buckwheat flour are one of the most underappreciated foods in the entire longevity conversation. Buckwheat is not technically a grain. It is the seed of a flowering plant, and its nutritional profile diverges from true grains in important ways. It contains rutin, a bioflavonoid that strengthens capillary walls and reduces vascular fragility. As capillaries weaken with age, blood pressure regulation becomes harder, bruising increases, and microvascular damage accelerates. Rutin directly addresses this mechanism. Buckwheat also contains D-caroinositol, a compound that has been studied for its insulin-sensitizing effects. Better insulin sensitivity means more stable blood sugar, less glycation of proteins and tissues, and a measurably slower rate of biological aging. The glycemic load of buckwheat soba is significantly lower than refined wheat pasta or white rice, meaning it delivers energy without the blood sugar spikes that accelerate cellular aging. Nagano Prefecture, famous for its soba culture, consistently ranks among the highest longevity regions in Japan. Traditional use: served cold with a dipping broth in summer, in hot broth in winter. The preparation is minimal. The noodle is allowed to be exactly what it is. 9. Daikon radish, the digestive engineer of the Japanese table. Every traditional Japanese meal comes with daikon in some form, grated raw beside grilled fish, pickled and dried alongside rice, simmered in winter stews until it absorbs the broth around it. Its presence is so consistent that most people eating it have stopped noticing it. That is the exact profile of a food that has been doing its work quietly for centuries. Daikon belongs to the cruciferous family, which means it contains glucosinolates, compounds that break down into isothiocyanates and indoles that support liver detoxification enzymes and have documented anti-cancer effects. The enzyme myrosinase in raw daikon activates these compounds on contact. This is why grated raw daikon beside grilled or fatty foods is not just a garnish. It is a functional digestive preparation. Daikon is also rich in digestive enzymes including amylase, diastase, and esterase, which break down starches and fats and reduce the digestive burden on the pancreas. Reduced pancreatic stress over decades of meals means better metabolic function as the body ages. Its vitamin C content is significant. Its folate supports cellular replication and DNA repair. And its fiber, both soluble and insoluble, feeds gut bacteria and supports bowel regularity. Traditional use: grated fresh, pickled as takuan, simmered in oden, or thinly sliced in salads. In every form, in every season. 10. Shiitake mushrooms, the forest medicine disguised as a culinary staple. Shiitake mushrooms have been used in traditional Japanese and Chinese medicine for more than 2,000 years. Long before pharmacology existed as a discipline, practitioners were prescribing shiitake for immune weakness, fatigue, and circulatory decline. What modern immunology has found inside the shiitake cell wall suggests those practitioners were doing something right. Lentinan, a beta-glucan polysaccharide extracted from shiitake, has been approved in Japan as an adjunctive cancer therapy since the 1980s. Beta-glucans activate macrophages and natural killer cells, the immune system's first-line defenders, with a specificity and efficiency that most immune supplements don't come close to matching. As immune surveillance declines with age, the risk of cancer and chronic infection rises. Foods that actively modulate immune function upward are among the most anti-aging things a person can consume. Shiitake also contains aritatinine, a compound that reduces cholesterol absorption by supporting bile acid metabolism. Its effect on LDL levels has been demonstrated in clinical trials. The flavor profile of shiitake also has practical anti-aging value. Its umami depth from glutamate reduces the need for sodium in cooking. Lower sodium means better blood pressure. Better blood pressure means slower vascular aging. The food tastes better and the salt stays off the table. Both outcomes extend your life. Traditional use: fresh in stir-fries and soups, dried and reconstituted for deeper flavor and higher beta-glucan concentration. The dried version, rehydrated in warm water, releases compounds the fresh mushroom holds more tightly. 11. Edamame, the everyday soybean hiding in plain sight. Half the anti-aging world is obsessed with exotic superfoods from distant rainforests and ancient apothecaries. The other half is eating edamame at sushi restaurants without giving it a second thought. Edamame is young soybeans harvested before they harden, eaten fresh or steamed. And it is quietly one of the most nutritionally complete plant foods available. Complete plant protein that supports muscle synthesis. Folate critical for DNA repair and methylation. the epigenetic mechanism by which the body regulates gene expression. Fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Isoflavones that protect bone and vascular tissue. Potassium that supports blood pressure. All of it in a handful of beans that cost almost nothing. The fiber content specifically deserves attention. Soluble fiber from legumes is one of the most reliable drivers of microbiome diversity. And microbiome diversity is one of the strongest biological correlates of healthy aging currently identified by researchers. Every gram of fiber you eat is food for bacterial communities that produce anti-inflammatory short-chain fatty acids your body uses to regulate immune function, repair the gut lining, and communicate through the gut-brain axis. Edamame is not a dramatic story. It is just very good food, eaten very regularly, by people who live very long lives. Traditional use: boiled in salted water in their pods, eaten as a snack before or during a meal, or shelled and added to rice and salads. 12. Goya, the bitter Okinawan medicine that most of the world has never met. Goya, bitter melon, the most intense vegetable in the Okinawan diet, and possibly the most clinically interesting one. Goya is not a comfortable food by any Western standard. It is intensely, aggressively bitter in a way that most Western palates immediately reject. Okinawan elders eat it daily. They have eaten it every day of their lives, and the regions of Okinawa with the highest Goya consumption have historically produced the highest concentrations of centenarians in the world. Goya contains a compound called charantin, along with polypeptide P and vicine, which have demonstrated hypoglycemic effects in clinical models. Multiple studies have shown that bitter melon consumption produces measurable reductions in fasting blood glucose and improvements in insulin sensitivity. Blood sugar regulation is not a diabetes-only concern. Glycation, the process by which excess glucose bonds to proteins and damages tissue, is one of the primary mechanisms driving skin aging, neurodegeneration, and vascular stiffening across the general population. Anything that keeps blood sugar stable is, in a direct biochemical sense, anti-aging. Goya is also rich in vitamin C, vitamin K, folate, and zinc. Its bitter compounds stimulate digestive enzyme production and bile secretion, improving the absorption of everything else in the meal. Traditional Okinawan medicine treated it as both food and remedy, without distinguishing between the two. The bitterness is the signal. Every compound that makes Goya work is carried in those bitter molecules. Traditional use: stir-fried with tofu, egg, and pork in a dish called Goya champoru. Eaten because it was there, because it was traditional, and because everyone's grandmother ate it. 13. Omebashi, the salt-preserved plum that Japanese elders have eaten every morning for 1,000 years. Omebashi is one of the most extreme foods in Japanese cuisine. Intensely sour, aggressively salty. A single small pickled plum with enough acid and salt to completely reorganize your understanding of what food can taste like. Japanese grandmothers eat one every morning. They have for their entire lives. The ume fruit used to make it is more closely related to an apricot than a Western plum, and the pickling process, involving salt and traditionally red shiso leaves, produces a chemistry that is significantly different from the fresh fruit. The resulting omebashi contains citric acid in exceptionally high concentrations. Citric acid has documented antimicrobial effects, alkalizing effects on the body's internal chemistry after metabolism, and direct antibacterial properties against the bacteria most commonly responsible for foodborne illness. The pickling process also generates compounds that stimulate digestive enzyme production and appetite, making omebashi a traditional morning appetite opener with the biochemical effect of preparing the gut for the day's first meal. A critical note: omebashi is very high in sodium. Traditional consumption involves one small plum per meal, not a handful. Within a traditionally low-sodium dietary pattern, the benefits are real. Used as a salt replacement or consumed in excess, the sodium load becomes the dominant concern. Traditional use: one small plum with rice and miso soup in the morning as a condiment, a seasoning, or a digestive remedy after a heavy meal. 14. Kombu, the invisible foundation of Japanese flavor and mineral nutrition. Kombu is the reason Japanese food tastes the way it does. It is thick kelp harvested from the cold, mineral-rich waters of Hokkaido, and when simmered in water, it releases glutamate, the amino acid that activates umami receptors and produces the deep savory quality that defines Japanese cooking. Dashi, the foundational broth of Japanese cuisine, is made from kombu. Almost everything in Japanese cooking begins with dashi, which means almost everything begins with kombu. This is nutritionally significant because the minerals in kombu are transferred to the cooking liquid. Every bowl of miso soup made with kombu dashi delivers iodine, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and a suite of trace minerals that are difficult to source anywhere else in a modern diet. Kombu also contains fucoidan in even higher concentrations than wakame, along with alginic acid, a gel-forming fiber that slows gastric emptying, stabilizes blood sugar response after meals, and binds to heavy metals in the gut to facilitate their excretion. The fact that kombu is typically removed from the broth before eating means that most of its benefit is delivered invisibly through the food it flavors. It does its work without announcing itself. Traditional use: as the base of dashi broth in miso soup, noodle broths, and simmered dishes. Rarely eaten directly. Always present. 15. Sesame seeds. The longevity seed that Japanese elders have been eating on everything. In Japan, sesame seeds are not a garnish. They are a daily condiment, a foundational ingredient in dressings and sauces, a constant presence in the small dishes that accompany every meal. Gomae, vegetables dressed with ground sesame paste, appears on Japanese tables with the same regularity that olive oil appears on Italian ones. This consistency is part of why its cumulative nutritional effect is so significant. Sesame contains sesamin and sesamolan, lignins that are converted by gut bacteria into compounds with documented estrogen-modulating, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant activity. These lignins have been studied for their ability to reduce LDL oxidation, lower blood pressure, and protect the liver from oxidative stress. The fat content of sesame is predominantly unsaturated, with a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 that supports rather than undermines inflammatory balance. The vitamin E content, primarily gamma-tocopherol, provides antioxidant protection to cell membranes that is distinct from and complementary to the alpha-tocopherol found in most vitamin E supplements. Gamma-tocopherol is specifically effective at neutralizing reactive nitrogen species, the inflammatory molecules that alpha-tocopherol alone cannot address. Sesame is also rich in calcium, zinc, magnesium, and copper in forms that whole seed consumption, especially ground or as paste, makes highly bioavailable. 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds deliver more calcium than a glass of milk. Traditional use: ground into paste for dressings, toasted and sprinkled over rice and vegetables, blended into sauces, pressed into sesame oil. Daily, in every form. 16. Yuzu, the Japanese citrus that the rest of the world hasn't discovered yet. Yuzu is not a common fruit in Western markets. It is small, intensely aromatic, and produces relatively little juice per fruit. It is also one of the most extraordinarily complex citrus fruits in existence. Its fragrance alone, bright and floral with a depth that lemon and lime don't come close to matching, has been the subject of aromatherapy research showing measurable reductions in stress hormones simply from the scent. The nutritional case for yuzu is built on its vitamin C concentration and its flavonoid profile. Yuzu contains hesperidin, naringin, and a specific flavonoid called yuzu flavone that have been studied for anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective, and blood pressure-lowering effects. Its limonene content, found in the peel, supports liver detoxification enzymes in the same pathways activated by other citrus fruits, but with a distinct aromatic compound profile that researchers are now studying independently. Vitamin C is the rate-limiting factor in collagen synthesis. Without daily adequate vitamin C, the body cannot maintain the collagen matrix that holds skin firm, keeps joint cartilage intact, and maintains arterial wall elasticity. These are precisely the tissues that show the most visible and the most dangerous effects of aging. Yuzu delivers vitamin C alongside a spectrum of synergistic flavonoids that extend its half-life in the body and improve how it is absorbed and used. Japanese aesthetic culture treats yuzu as something close to sacred. The tradition is instinctive preservation of something the body recognizes as valuable. Traditional use: zest and juice in ponzu sauce, in hot baths during winter, as a flavoring in sweets, vinegars, and cold noodle broths. 17. Shiso, the medicinal herb that most of the world has never tasted. Shiso is the herb growing in every Japanese garden that most Westerners who have eaten sushi have encountered without registering. The large, jagged green leaf, sometimes placed under sashimi, the purple leaf that turns umeboshi brine red. It has been used in Japanese and Chinese traditional medicine for respiratory disease, digestive distress, and food poisoning for more than 2,000 years. The bioactive compounds in shiso include rosmarinic acid, a potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compound that inhibits the enzymes driving histamine response, meaning shiso has genuine anti-allergic properties. This is part of why it has historically been paired with raw fish. Its antimicrobial properties reduce the risk of foodborne pathogens, and its anti-inflammatory compounds reduce the immune response to any that do make it through. Paraldehyde, the compound responsible for shiso's distinctive sharp, anise-like flavor, has documented antimicrobial activity against multiple food spoilage and pathogenic organisms. Luteolin and apigenin, flavonoids present in shiso leaves, have been studied for their ability to inhibit inflammatory cytokine signaling and protect neurons from oxidative damage. Shiso is also one of the richer plant sources of alpha-linolenic acid, the plant-based omega-3 fatty acid, contributing to the overall anti-inflammatory fatty acid balance that characterizes traditional Japanese diets. Traditional use: fresh leaves wrapped around sashimi, minced and mixed into rice, shredded over cold noodles, and as a preserving leaf in pickled preparations. 18. Kabocha squash, the orange anti-aging vegetable that Japanese families have eaten every winter. Kabocha is Japanese pumpkin. It is dense, sweet, and deeply orange in a way that signals, correctly, that it is extraordinarily rich in carotenoids. Beta-carotene, the pigment responsible for that orange color, is converted by the body to vitamin A, and vitamin A is indispensable to skin integrity, immune function, and vision health, particularly the prevention of macular degeneration. But kabocha is not just beta-carotene. It contains alpha-carotene, a carotenoid that human epidemiological studies have associated with lower overall mortality in a way that few individual nutrients can claim. It contains lutein and zeaxanthin, carotenoids that accumulate in the eye's macula and protect against the oxidative damage that leads to age-related macular degeneration, currently the leading cause of blindness in older adults. Eating kabocha regularly is, in a documentable sense, protecting your eyesight decades into the future. The fiber content supports gut health and blood sugar stability. The potassium supports blood pressure regulation. And the vitamin C combined with the carotenoids delivers a synergistic antioxidant effect on skin that supports collagen protection and UV damage mitigation from the inside. Kabocha is also naturally sweet enough that it requires no added sugar when prepared simply. In a traditional Japanese diet, it often stands in as the sweet element of a meal, ancestral satisfaction of the craving without the glycemic consequence. Traditional use: simmered in sweet soy broth called namono, roasted until caramelized, added to tempura, prepared simply in season, eaten in quantity. 19. Sencha green tea, the daily antioxidant ritual of 120 million people. If matcha is the concentrated ceremonial expression of Japanese green tea culture, sencha is the daily practice. Most Japanese households brew sencha multiple times a day. Elderly Japanese in Shizuoka Prefecture, Japan's green tea heartland, drink it from morning to night. They have done so for their entire lives. And Shizuoka consistently produces some of the longest-lived populations in Japan. Sencha is brewed from the whole leaf steeped in water slightly cooler than boiling to preserve its catechin content. It delivers EGCG, the same potent antioxidant found in matcha, along with a broader spectrum of catechins including epicatechin, epicatechin gallate, and epigallocatechin. The combination of these compounds in their natural ratios appears to have synergistic effects that isolated catechin supplements do not fully replicate. Sencha also contains theanine, quercetin, and a modest amount of caffeine. The daily ritual of brewing and drinking green tea is neurologically a low-level stress reduction practice. The combination of theanine and the ritual itself has measurable effects on cortisol. Lower chronic cortisol means slower adrenal aging, better sleep quality, and reduced inflammatory signaling throughout the body. Green tea consumption has been linked in large Japanese cohort studies to significantly lower rates of cardiovascular disease, certain cancers, and cognitive decline. These are not preliminary findings. They are replicated, large-scale, population-level observations from some of the most carefully studied populations in nutritional epidemiology. Traditional use: brewed fresh multiple times daily from loose leaves in a small teapot. Not as a supplement. As a habit as natural as breathing. 20. Sukmano. The ancient preservation practice that was gut medicine before anyone had a word for the gut microbiome. Number 20 requires context to understand properly, because not all sukmano is the same thing. Sukmano simply means pickled things, and the category includes both lacto-fermented vegetables with genuine probiotic activity and salt-cured or vinegar-pickled vegetables that are flavorful and nutritious but not live-fermented. This distinction matters, and it deserves honesty. True lacto-fermented sukmano, like nukazuk, vegetables fermented in rice bran beds that develop living bacterial cultures over days and weeks, are genuine probiotic foods in the same way that sauerkraut and kimchi are. The bacterial populations they contain contribute to microbiome diversity and produce short-chain fatty acids that reduce systemic inflammation. The vegetables themselves, typically cucumber, daikon, carrot, and eggplant, retain their fiber content through fermentation, giving beneficial bacteria additional substrate to work with. Vinegar-pickled sukmano are acidified rather than fermented. They are not probiotic, but they are still high in fiber, low in calories, traditionally low in sugar, and meaningful contributors to vegetable variety and digestive stimulation before a meal. What sukmano represents in the broader context of Japanese longevity is a cultural habit of consuming fermented and preserved vegetables as a daily, non-negotiable part of every meal, not as a specialty health food, but as the thing that comes with the rice. Every meal, every day, for a lifetime. That consistency, accumulated over decades, is precisely how ancestral food traditions protect against aging. Not through any single miraculous compound, but through the layered, daily, lifelong practice of eating what has always worked. Traditional use: a small dish of mixed pickles alongside every meal, morning to night, varied by season, consistent by habit. 20 foods. Thousands of years of continuous daily use. A civilization that built its culture, its agriculture, its rituals, and its daily rhythms around the things that kept people living long and living well. Here is what I want you to take away from all of this. The Okinawan elders who made it to 100 were not following a protocol. They were not taking supplements or tracking macros or reading nutritional studies. They were cooking what their grandmothers cooked. Natto in the morning, miso soup with every meal, seaweed in the broth, bitter melon in the stir-fry, green tea from sunrise to sunset. Modern science, with its clinical trials and cellular imaging, keeps arriving at the same conclusions those grandmothers already knew. Fermented foods feed the gut bacteria that regulate everything else. Small oily fish build the brain and protect the heart. Bitter compounds stimulate the detoxification pathways that clear the chemistry of aging from the body. Purple foods protect the cellular machinery that ages fastest. These things were not discovered in a lab. They were confirmed there. Quality and preparation matter here, just as they do everywhere. Natto that has been properly fermented is not the same as the product heat-treated and stabilized for mass export. Suncha brewed from fresh leaves at the right temperature is not the same as green tea extract in a capsule. Traditionally lacto-fermented sukmano is not the same as vegetables pickled in industrial vinegar brine. Every item on this list has a real version and a shadow version. The real version is the one that centuries of Japanese culture was built around. Drop a comment below and tell me which one surprised you most. Are you Team Natto, Team Bitter Melon, or Team Mushrooms? I read every single one. And if this kind of deep dive ancestral nutrition content is what you have been looking for, there is an entire library of it waiting for you right here on this channel. Hit subscribe right now, ring the bell, and make sure you never miss a video.